slowly. It's going to be hard to undo the first two speakers, but I'll try to present kind of the idea of strategic thinking from a slightly different perspective than the first two speakers. The previous speaker, Peter, presented a great kind of idea of strategy of strategic thinking applied to brand or how businesses as holistic could be looked at. And I'll try to look at it from a different perspective of applying strategic thinking to business as a whole. Kind of partially addressing what Jamal had asked at the end. All companies start off with great strategies, they have a lot of people working, but vast majority fail. What happens? So that's a big question in its own right, which I can't address, but I'll try to address how strategic thinking has to be applied more than just a brand, and how it's critical to apply to all aspects of business that can lead to success. Because one single aspect of a business that you don't do right will kill you, and dead is dead. Okay, so cash flow will kill you good as bad brand strategy. Or not delivering your product will kill you good as having bad shipment that gets broken down on the road. So there's a lot of small things that can kill you along the way, and strategic thinking has to be applied to each and every aspect of your company. So I kind of have the presentation broken down into two kind of distinct areas. One is applying what is strategic thinking and kind of giving conceptual viewpoint of that. Then giving some examples from our own company on at various stages of our life where we applied different thinking, where it led to, and what were the implications of that. How some were positive, some were negative, and what came out of that, and what the thinking that had to go through towards that. So I said I'll try to hit on what is strategic thinking, what is the process of thinking strategically, how it should be applied, and I think other speakers have spoken to that as well. Introduce Baylis Medical, and what's our growth strategy been, and try to summarize it. So strategy, in the most simplistic sense, is you can think of it as what you want to achieve or avoid. You could think of that as that answer to the question is really objective. What is it you want to achieve? And how you achieve that desired result and answer to that question is really strategy. So essentially, you're trying to say there's objective what you want to achieve, and strategy is the middle part that'll get you the results. So you could think of the most simplistic sense, what is it you want to achieve? If you want to make money, you want to have products you can sell, what is the thinking that will take you there for the desired results? When I think of strategy as the middle, kind of the meat of the sandwich, if you will, on what the objectives are and what the results which you like to get to. And the strategic thinking is a very valuable approach to addressing business decisions and challenges. It helps you examine situations from a broad perspective, gather right pieces of information, and make smart choices that benefit your entire organization. So it's really looking at strategic thinking applied to the entire organization in addition to branding business as a whole. So it's kind of the key aspects of it. If you look a little further, and in most basic sense, strategic thinking is about analyzing opportunities, problems from a broad perspective, and understanding the potential impact of the actions you might have on the organization as a whole and your customers and how it impact that. So it's really about thinking objective to your desired results, and in the middle of how the thinking will get to that. And by definition requires broad perspective, looking at the problem as a whole, and variety of solutions that could be applied to that. And I'll walk you through some of the tools that we use on, or how we educate our folks on thinking strategically and kind of the process of strategically thinking. Okay, why is strategic thinking important? First of all, it enhances the overall corporate strategy, as Peter and Sunny was mentioning. It makes smarter long-term decisions. So if you desire to be a profitable business in long term, it'll help you get there by strategizing various aspects of business. It gains employee commitment and support of a decision. So it's not any given part of your business, even like branding or whether it be collections or product design or product delivery, your employees will see it as a kind of thought-through process that they can buy into, because we all have to fight for human talent. But they see as a company as a strategy of going somewhere. It'll help you attract talent and have a buy into that. It also helps boost group performance and maximize the business results as a whole, as opposed to going helter-skelter kind of thought process. And most importantly, fosters a culture that supports fresh thinking and embraces strategic initiatives. Because as you grow, and even at any stage of the company, one person can only do so much. You really need value from the rest of your team, and you need to enable them to think broadly, think creatively, add ideas, and think strategically on how you can meet your company's objectives. Because one, it doesn't matter how smart or the guy at the top is, he does need an entire set of teams. You know, even speaking about Apple quite a bit, but Steve Jobs is just one man with 8 hours in a day or 24 hours. And still needs 200,000 other people to do something. And ideas have to come from them, and all aspects have to be thought through, everything from how is the device going to be made, to how many iPads you're going to need, how we're going to bring it from China and ship it and not have it broken. So these aspects will be thought through, and the strategy has to be applied to every single aspect. How are we going to buy chips such that we don't run out? There's a lot of thinking that have to go through, and you really need a buy-in from a variety of people in the organization, and that culture has to be fostered towards that. So to kind of want to embrace that kind of idea of strategic thinking, we can ask ourselves, what are the characteristics of a strategic thinker? So kind of some of the things that help: curiosity. Able to ask yourself, why is something like this, or why could it not be differently, or how can we approach it in a different sense? So it's really, it's a creative thinking, if you will, but it's really curiosity to a problem. Like, why are we doing things in this way? Why could we not do it differently, or how do people do it? So curiosity also refers to ability to learn or wanting to learn, not just be satisfied with the way how we've done things for the last 10 years, or this how it's done in industry. How can we think beyond that? So have a kind of curious nature to that. Ability to be flexible, able to change, strategies have to change, but even as you're thinking through it, not be rigid in the way that, okay, the accounting books tell us that we have to do receivables in a certain way. Maybe there is another way. Maybe there's another way of approaching things. Be flexible in thinking and not be rigid, otherwise there's no point of thinking. You have one objective, you have one line of thought, will get you one set of results. We want to be flexible towards that. And then we're ability to think in future, which is really to say, what is our objective and how objective and where we want to be in future, whether it be brand positioning, profitability, or supply chain management, or accounting, doesn't really matter, but where is it you want to be in 1 year, 2 years, or 5 years from now, and how can the strategy take you there? The other one is obviously to have a positive outlook. Okay, we all have 1,000,001 problems. Every single business, doesn't matter who it is, going to have problems. And have a positive outlook. If we can solve this, if we put our thinking to that and apply some intelligence and creative thinking to that. Be open, again, kind of refers to the same idea of curiosity, and have a breadth of thinking ability, and be able to approach problem in a holistic sense and look at it from different perspective, and a breadth of ability to be able to comprehend kind of the idea of a broad bandwidth to be able to deal with issues. So you can see there's a lot of commonalities referred, like, in terms of characteristics, would be to think forward, have open mind, be flexible. They all kind of speak to the same issue, and be able to think of what is the objective in short term and long term, and what are the end desired results you want, and think of the strategies in the middle part that'll get you there. So if you go beyond importance of strategic thinking to kind of people it takes, so what is a process for us to think strategically? And Peter was kind of speaking to this to a great extent with his model of setting the stage with the DNA team. So what he really looks at is that we can break it up into 2 parts. One is to understand the problem. Second is the application of thinking to get us there. So the first part we can say is, the first part is setting the stage, which would be to look at the broad implications of the issue, clarify your objectives for thinking strategically. It's really saying, look at your objectives that you have in a greater sense. Okay, what are the implications of that? For instance, I'll give you an example of accounts receivable, something very mundane we don't think about. But we can do accounts receivable in a way that'll piss your customer off and they may never buy again. Or you could think, okay, we want to collect money, but still have the client so I can service them again. Okay, so if you think, okay, a retail shop is a collection issue, but if you're dealing business to business or even business to consumer, you want to collect money, but collect in a way that'll preserve the relationship for you to do that. But if I just think that I want to collect money, there's 10 ways of doing it, but you lost in the long term. You may gain short term, but you really lost in the long term. So you have to think in a kind of broad implications of what you're dealing with, even when you're dealing with, say, supply chain. And whether it be GM or us or any company, when you're trying to get parts from China or Korea or Salt Lake City, how are you going to deal with the supplier? Should we have multiple suppliers? Should we have one supplier? So what are the implications of that in a broader sense, not just today? So you think in a broader sense of that. And you really want to think in a big picture, understand the broader business environment that Baylis is operating in or your companies will operate in, and clarify your strategic objectives. What is that you hope to achieve? And what you hope to achieve is not just most obvious what's in front of you, like I need to get this chip from Salt Lake City, but maybe it's in a broader context. And for an example, over long term, I need to reduce cost. So I need to have reliability of the supply, or if my demand changes, I want to be able to change with that. So have kind of broader kind of application to that could be applied to that. And part two is really once you kind of clarify what is the objective in short term and long term, how you like to get there, is really applying your skill, which would be as an individual, as a group, to generate results that'll get you there. So things that you want to look at is identifying relationship patterns or trends in pieces of data that you're dealing with. Thinking creatively, again, goes back to the people that can help you think, or the characteristic of a strategic thinker. Think creatively, say what are other problems, other ways of solving this. Just today, for instance, we were a very mundane problem we're dealing with. We need a piece of metal, and we buy it metric size, and every company in North America runs a imperial size, so we can't buy this needle except that has to be especially extruded, which is going to take 8 weeks. So then we're thinking about that, then someone said, okay, Japan runs metric. Okay, all of a sudden, why can't we go to Japan to get a product? Okay, maybe there's other issues we can't, but at least it's an option that becomes available. So we need to think in a creative sense to what is a problem and how we're going to solve that. We need to be able to analyze information of, as Sunny was saying, of what is the environment like, who you're dealing with, what are the issues you're dealing with, and looking at the trends and patterns of that. Then prioritizing actions to get results. So you have objectives, strategy has to get you some results. It's not there for, just for a piece of paper. It has to kind of deliver and have a set of results that come out of that, and hopefully it's profitable business. So you need to have a set of prioritized actions that can help you realize that. And by definition of developing a strategy, you look to make trade-offs. There's some positives, some negatives. It's a balance of probabilities or balance of options that you have that you look to go towards. So now we'll talk a little bit about Baylis Medical and how strategic thinking has played a key role in our development over time. So just kind of give you a little background. We started like 25 years ago, so this is our 25th year in 1986. We started as Canadian importer and distributor of medical devices. So we imported finished devices from US and Europe and distributed in Canada, mainly in Toronto and Montreal. That's where we were living at that time. Then in 1998, we started developing our own medical device accessories. So these are low-end products that could be sold as part of a bigger system. Then in 2002, we became manufacturer and developers of the complex medical devices. Now we have roughly 120 people, and we have sales across in a number of countries. And I want to go through some of the strategic implications of what happened. So when we first started in '86, we were import distributor of medical devices, which is essentially a service business. We're renting our sales force, if you will, by renting our regulatory clearances that we have. So we're buying a finished device, and we're selling it, not in retail sense, but you have to go articulate the value of that to physicians and sell to the hospital. So it's really a service business because you're middlemen between the customer and the manufacturer. And it's a relatively low cost requirement. There's no capital required really. You're not buying any machinery, equipment, you're doing a service. It is a profitable business if done properly. But it has a set of inherent flaws. So when we started in '86, so by the time we got to '96, '98 timeframe, we had been in it for a good 10, 12 years. And we realized that distribution of the business is not a good long-term model, especially for young folks like us back then. Because what happens is that if you're selling something and you're successful at it, and you're very successful, the company will say, well, we don't need Baylis Medical, we can sell direct, we can have a salesman and keep the margins, so you get cut out. Or in our business, medical device companies get bought and sold because economics of scale to large companies is very high, so the technology as a whole gets sold, and you're out of the business. So your business would grow, and you would come down. Then you have to grow and come down. So between '86 and '98 happened to us 4 times, where we grew the business nicely, making good living, call comes in and it drops catastrophically. Now you have to pick up another brand, build it. So you make a good living going up and down, but it's not a good growth long-term that you could go to that. So we realized that it's an inherent flaw in our business model. It's not a good long-term business model, at least for us. A number of companies do it. It is a very profitable business, but at least in our perspective, it's not the life we want to lead where you go up and down. You want to go steady up and have a sense of growth pattern. So where the strategic thinking came in is we kind of looked at the opportunities and problem from a broad perspective of trying to understand the implication of this. So the problem was that Baylis Medical as a distributor has no barriers to entry. They could set up a salesperson in Canada and get rid of us as a whole, or at most, even if you have a sales contract, the entire company can be sold and you're out of business. So it's not a good long-term business model, we're saying. So in order to grow from us and go beyond that, so we kind of try to analyze the opportunities and problems that presented to us. So the opportunity became available that we're electrical engineers, and we have some sense of product. We have relationship with physicians. We have a good idea of how to get product introduced in the hospital and what kind of things are needed. And we even have first-hand knowledge of some of the products that aren't being serviced properly or being manufactured. So based on that, we decided to kind of go into becoming a developer and manufacturer of medical accessories. So we started in 95. In 98, we launched our first product based on that. These were essentially accessories that were being sold with other pieces of equipment. But it got us foot in the door, and it gave us a entirely different trajectory, if you will. So we're on a buying and selling mode. Now we become a manufacturer of the product that's labeled with our name that we own. And but required a entire different level of investment. We need the cash to do this. Entire new set of skill set. We need to learn about regulatory, manufacturing. But these are the aspects that had to be done if we need to go in a different trajectory. And then we launched these products in 98. Then because we're on a different trajectory between 98 and 2000, we developed a set of new products. And by 2002, we had become a manufacturer and developer, so we're more complex medical devices and procedures. So we're still in a relatively small stage. I think we had 10 employees in 2002. So we went from an accessory-driven model, from a distribution model to a start manufacturing accessories to more complex systems. And in order for us to go through a kind of from distribution to accessory to more complex system, one of the key aspects is that you need funding. You need money to grow there. So on the first kind of the fundamental strategic decision we made, and I'll go through the implication of that in a minute, was not to raise capital, but fund it from internal sources. So throughout the process, when we financed ourselves organically by internally generated financing, and a startup or sweat equity of the founders was really in selling medical devices, so we had some revenue from that side. In early stages, revenue from distribution was used to develop our accessories. Then revenue from accessories was really used to develop our next set of complex or more in-depth devices, if you will. Along the way, as we were growing from a kind of distribution to accessories to more complex devices, we also had to think in a more strategic thinking applied in a more holistic sense to entire business. So I think I can say with this great uncertainty, for a profitable business, so meaning the business is going to be profitable, which would be slightly different than if you're doing a business that you want to simply spin off. Okay, those would require a different set of thinking. But if one business to be profitable, a number of aspects must come together. Like a single aspect not working will and does lead to downfall. Okay? So we can speak about brands, which are very critical, but if other aspects such as if you're not able to deliver value, if you're not able to deliver value in terms of product or service, or even if you have value but you're not able to articulate the story, okay? So you have a great product but you can't describe why should someone buy it, that could lead you just as bad as not having the product itself. Or even once you deliver the product and articulate a story but you don't collect money efficiently, cash flow will kill you. And if you look in Global Mail, 7 out of 8 companies or 10 companies that go under are by essence somehow related to cash flow. They overspent before revenue came in or other aspects that came in. Managing cash flow is a critical aspect of that. Managing human capital, losing key engineers at a critical time can do it. Like, I'm sure Apple is a great company with jobs, but it has 200,000 other great people that make it. Or Microsoft has some of the best engineers in the world. So the talent of the human capital that has to be managed. And often it's a very limited set of hands that has to be managed. So even trying to manage the human element of that. Investing in infrastructure. Sometimes you can overspend, sometimes you can underspend. For instance, I give an example of a medical device company called Vasogen. You may not have heard of it, but they were working on a synthetic blood, very critical problem in medical area. I think they developed the product, it was going through FDA trials, and the data was looking quite positive for them. So they spent something like $240 million developing an entire plant. If you go down 401, you can still see it just outside Milton. Huge plant to spend vast amount of money on infrastructure before the approval came in. And unfortunately, the study was negative. So now you got $240 million of white elephant. Okay, so that's a perhaps example of infrastructure that wasn't spent. Other examples are where you don't invest enough in infrastructure. So for instance, RIM having this service, outage service, was really targeted towards lack of proper infrastructure that was in position. Or even companies as they're growing may not invest enough in IT infrastructure or manufacturing infrastructure. These things are and cannot deliver the value proposition to the clients at an appropriate time frame, will have negative implications for your business. Depends how, it may or may not kill you, depends how you manage that, but it is an aspect of it that has to be looked at. Another one is that planning for future while surviving the present. Jack Welch in his book, Winning, articulates very well that anybody can dream or you can squeeze a lemon. But the key thing is, how do you dream while squeezing a lemon? How do you grow while you still have to eat today? You still have employees to pay, you got payroll comes in every 2 weeks, money has to be spent in. How do you think about the future and invest in that and balance that with needs of today? Okay, and these are a part of strategic thinking of as in how much do we want to invest and how does the strategy align to new product development or branding, whatnot, which is going to take investment while surviving today. Because if you dream big, but you run out of money, you're dead, it doesn't really matter what the dream was. And you can tell other people what your dream was, but it doesn't really matter, in a sense. So you have to live today, but if you only live today, you'll only be a certain size, you won't grow. So you really have to think in terms of future, and try to marry that, the resources that you have, align yourself towards that. So the kind of message I'd like to say is that strategic thinking should be applied to all aspects of your business. Okay? Really, if you think of strategic thinking in terms of objective and results and what's in the middle, think of that in all aspects of it. And each of these elements identified, you need to think strategically as in, how do I live today and invest for the future? Okay, how do I build infrastructure that will allow me to service my customers today, yet have ability to innovate and develop products in the future. So for us, the infrastructure had played a key role. When we first started developing the accessories, we had outsourced all our manufacturing. So in fact, I designed it and got FDA cleared, but we were manufacturing it in Michigan somewhere, and it was kind of like entirely manufactured elsewhere. But then as we started to grow, one of the big problems became as volumes grew for us, our subcontractor was not able to keep up. But more importantly, we want to innovate, but we have no technology in our own garage or our own building that we can work with. So you have to go talk to other people. And because you're so small compared to the larger companies dealing with, you're lucky if they take your call. So you go back down, you work with them, but essentially your innovation pipeline is slowed down drastically because you have to work through a series of channels before you can do it, and you have no control over your levers to get something done. So we realize that we need to invest slowly in our own manufacturing capability for, first of all, to meet demand, which could have been met through subcontracting, But for us to innovate, we need to have a set of technologies, for instance, laser welding or molding, whatnot, in our buildings, such that we can think of a new product, manufacture it, introduce it in a shorter time frame. Now that has served us very well over the last 12 years, being able to innovate, set of new products, and get them out in a record time to marketplace. And that is, in fact, has led to our competitive advantage, which I'll speak to in a second. So as a result of our kind of the thinking or objective of getting away from being a developer to a fully manufactured device, so now we distribute manufactured products, distribute in over 60 countries. We've got about 120 employees and so forth. And in 2009, we sold one of our businesses to Kimberly-Clark in the US. So the end result of this kind of thinking process has been competitive advantage for Baylis, which is really I think we put in line with the differential advantage of our products have inherently something different, and we in fact we try to sell more technology, if you will, for higher costs, or for more kind of thinking. We're going to sell products that have greater clinical applicability and charge more for that. So, and that's how we differentiate ourselves and invest very heavily in differentiating, whether it be IP or clinical trials or procedural information or brand kind of recognition to say these products are innovative. So we're trying to sell more for more, and so we need to invest in a lot of soft knowledge that it will take to that. So a Chinese company can't just come and duplicate that, so we can block it from IP perspective, or more importantly from a mind share of a physician to say Baylis product is a good product that has some innovative technology to get us there. So now our competitive advantage is really has been to deliver products that add clinical value, and innovative products that deliver value that we sell at a premium price. So we're not like that. We don't need to be cheapest guy. We're not going to sell on price. In fact, we need to get away from the market, because in long term, some guy in China will always make it for 5 cents cheaper than we could possibly ever make it. Okay? That's just a fact of law. So we need to sell on product differentiation and invest in that while trying to live today. So that's really the balance of that. So I think I spoke to this a little bit earlier, but I'll kind of re-emphasize that. So in our startup phase, our focus was to learn the business from ground up, like on the ground selling. And most critically, we learned how to sell to physicians and how to sell to hospitals, get products introduced, and build relationships with physicians, administrators, and biomedical engineers, which came in very helpful as we went from developer to a manufacturer based. So this was kind of our base knowledge of business that was critical for us. In early stages, like how to engage physician in a meaningful way was one of our key aspects we had to work on. By seeing companies we were distributing for, because we started as a developer, and since they had the product, we had the ability to go see them, go look at the clients, and learn from them on how they introduced products, how they developed it. So in fact, our entire product development model comes from a company called Proof Engineering, one of the companies we sold for, and we saw how they were doing it and how successful they were at it. We kind of copied great aspects of that. The other implication is long term, as a result of the financial strategy I was speaking about, of trying to grow the business internally, not be financed externally, is that as a founders, we retain control. We're not beholden to venture capitalists, private equity capital. Not to say it work in every single model, but at least in our case, as a result of self-funding it, we're able to control our own destiny to a great extent, which is luxury in today's world. And another thing it does is aligns interests of all parties, which is essentially myself and our partners, to say where do we want to be long term. We don't have another person, like venture capitalist, that's looking to say how can I get out in 3 years or 5 years from now, which could be diametrically opposed to your business, your intention of growing in the long term. Other aspects of that are kind of negative as a result of our strategy is that it is a slow growth model. We can only grow at a rate of generating profit than investing. We don't have pot of money we can work with, so it's going to inherently limit how fast you can grow. You could never grow like a rocket ship because you just don't have $10 million, $20 million to burn through. You're going to have to go sell, make profit, then invest. So it's going to inherently slow you down. You don't get the discipline that would be imposed by external capital. If we had external capital, I guarantee there would have been much more financial discipline that would have been imposed upon us. Other things you lack is we don't have a public profile. If you're raising capital, you'll be out talking in the newspapers, whatnot. We don't necessarily have a public profile. It can be good or bad, in a way. And we don't have set up like stock options, whatnot, that we can use to attract or retain staff because we don't have a stock model to go towards that. So these are kind of the strategic implications of the strategy we took of self-funding it. So these are negative, this is good and bad. These are the negative parts of that. So in kind of summary, like says that strategic thinking involves thinking broadly and creatively to achieve a set of objectives. So it's not a piece of paper that you can file that is say, what is the objective and strategies need to get you there as a result. And strategic thinking is critical in every stage of your company, in every aspect of your business. And strategic thinking must be applied to all aspects of your business. So it applies from your small to large, medium. If you're on a small to medium-sized range, it applies to as much as applies to Apple or when we were a one-man show. And it must be applied to all aspects of your company. Because a single one will kill you with the other, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what killed you. You need to be a long-term profitable business. You need to think about every aspect of how to apply to that. So that's kind of the essence of what I was going to present. We can certainly take questions or.
So my question is, how does this process work? Do you meet quarterly as founders and senior managers and discuss the issues and then set up or engage consultants to get the reports, or do your own study? How does the process work? How do you keep on doing it year after year as the company matures from one stage to the next?
Okay, well, I think there's a couple aspects. First is you need to have a long-term strategy where you want to be, and that shouldn't change. That's not something you debate every day. So it's like 10 years from now, we want to be in medical device business. For us, we want to be in medical device business selling medical technology on a worldwide basis. That's one of our tenets. Second tenet is we want to be high-tech products, or products that have critical differentiation along that. So we have some key long-term goals, and that should never change. It's not something you debate quarterly or yearly. Then within that, depending on what is the issue that you're dealing with, that you bring in the right group of people for that problem and think through that. And that could happen 3 times a day or once a month. So depending on what is that you're trying to get at. And what you're trying to get at will change from day to day. You may have a new problem that comes up that you need to deal with. So this thinking is not like I can apply once a quarter and go home, or I can bring a consultant in and get it done. It's really, it's a living element of that. You're dealing with this day to day. You maybe, for instance, deal with our financial folks and say our cash conversion is not as fast as it should be. That's a problem. And our objective is that if other companies can do cash conversion, which is how long it takes for you to buy material and get profit out of that, cash conversion cycle, if you will, or inventory turns over, we could say ours is 6 and industry is 4. So our objective, we should at least get to 5. So that's the objective, then you may want to meet with your supply people to see how we're going to get there. So it's a living entity that you have to embrace on a daily basis, if you will, on different aspects of your business. If you're strictly thinking of branding, perhaps maybe deal quarterly or yearly, but on a different aspects of business are going to require that. And if you have a problem, you have to meet with group engineers hourly, if you will, or daily issues that are critical.
So you do have set of reports or set of studies which are lying here, or the PowerPoint presentations that they're driving the business. So I'm trying to see the mechanism which is involved in keeping track of where we work and how we are progressing, how things are evolving over time.
Yeah, I mean, you have different reports. First of all, your financial reports that's going to tell you if you're making money or not. Okay, you have a set of cash flow, cash flow objectives that you look at. We also use what's called a balanced scorecard, which is an idea that came about some professor, which looks at what are your key matrices of your business, and we monitor that on a monthly basis. So for instance, we look at cash flow analysis, our inventory turnovers, the number of patents we filed, or the number of regulatory approvals, or how our sales are projecting. It's a number of key items we look at on a daily basis. That's more on a kind of tactics of running a business, not really on strategic thinking. But I would say for each aspect of what we're trying to drive at, we'll think through and develop a strategy. So for instance, right now one of the big initiatives we have is on lean manufacturing. So we identified the problem that our manufacturing is not as efficient as it should be, meaning that it takes too long from raw materials to finished goods, and if our demand changes, we aren't able to change as fast. Okay, so we identified that as a problem. So then we kind of thought through what are the issues that we need to deal with, and one of the first one was that we just don't have enough education in our company, so we need to get ourselves better educated to that. So we kind of said, okay, who are we going to bring in to get our team educated? Can't just be one person, so how are we going to educate different people? Then from there we develop a plan. Now we have a plan that we're following through. So you don't need to rethink that every 2 days. You have a plan, you should monitor it. Now we monitor that. But if other problem comes up, which it will, then we'll have to develop the other plans for that.
Hi, Kris. My name's Pierre. I've worked all over North America and Europe doing the scorecard. Okay, I run a consulting company. My question to you in terms of your success is how important is the balanced scorecard in terms of aligning your people and your business and measuring success? And are you still using it today?
Yeah, I tell you though, not to overquote Jack Welch, but he quotes in his book that you get what you measure and you get what you reward.
Yeah.
So if you're not measuring it, you don't know where you are.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the key things that I tell our folks is that if you don't know what you're measuring, you're not getting it. And if you measured it, you took the effort to measure it, now you have to do something about that, or you just wasted time. Okay, so if you're going to measure it, do something to fix that.
Yes.
And so we do use balanced scorecard as a corporate level and at a department level. So for instance, our quality manager will present a scorecard based on indices there. Our IP manager will look at that aspect, and certainly for financial part of that. So we do use it, and we use it rigorously on a monthly basis to review different parts of the business, and it's a living entity. I mean, what you're measuring today may be different than what you need to measure a year from now. So you need to keep that in cognizance of that. You can't just be fixed as I'm measuring this. No, if that problem is fixed, you need to measure something else that you need to.
So did you also create a strategy map? The strategy map is really, a one-page document that identifies your financial, your customer, your operational, and your growth needs as a business, and connect the dots between those big objectives. And then your balanced scorecards attached to that. So did you do something like that?
Yeah, perhaps not in a formal way.
Okay.
And we could certainly benefit from that. Maybe that's something we could.
The reason why I ask that is that a lot of organizations struggle with strategy or identifying how they're going to get from point A to point B 5 years down the road. And I use the strategy map to galvanize the thinking that you're talking about and align it in the business to actually then start focusing resources. And then the scorecard allows you to measure what you want to do and to create the conversations and the action plans attached to where you want to go. So I just find your story very compelling and interesting. And we did it intuitively, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, we don't have formal business education per se, but what we do is that look at, if you want to be developing devices and selling them on a worldwide basis, what are you going to need? You're going to need to do clinical trials, so you're going to need patents, we need to get educated on that, or we're going to need to be able to sell in Brazil, so we need to know about Brazilian regulatory system.
Right.
So we have to invest in learning that today, so 2 years from now we can sell into that marketplace with that regulatory. So we do think ahead, so we need to be in what's the gap of knowledge we have. And it's not just knowledge gap for myself or my partner, but really of our people. And then how can we get there while they're still doing their day job? Because we have to sell something today, so we can make a paycheck in 1 month from now. We have to sell something today, there's no doubt about that. And you can think about Brazil tomorrow, but you have to sell something today, so how do we do that?
Very good.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
2 questions. What was the startup capital? How did you fund the working capital to get going in the first place? And secondly, do you sell equipment or devices only, or do you have services that you sell as well?
Yeah, okay, it's a very good question. Probably our startup capital, at least on a balance sheet, would probably show $1,000. So it started at zero because we started as importing and selling. So there's no capital required. In fact, once you sold something, you can buy it and deliver it to the hospital and collect money. So it's really a service model, if you will. So you're really selling your skill set or relationships to be able to deliver a product to the hospital. So that's kind of the startup capital. And what's the second one? Sorry.
Do you sell services in addition to the devices?
Okay, we don't sell healthcare service itself, so we don't actually deliver healthcare. So our business model is really based on what we call razor and razor blades. So we have a piece of electronics, which is our razor, and disposables that go with that. So it's really based on that model. So you can think of disposable as a service, if you will. And then we certainly service our capital equipment, but that's really on warranty kind of thing. But we don't sell
As a consultant or anything like that?
no, we sell, I have a picture of that. Yeah. So we sell a piece of capital equipment. So I can do that. There it is. So we sell this piece of electronics, and these are the disposables that go with that. So we may sell limited number of capital equipment, and then hope to sell thousands of throwaways that are in our business called disposables that enter your body.
So Gillette inspired you.
Yeah, it's not inspired, let's say.
Oh, it's like
Yeah, it's a common terminology to read, sir.
Yeah, I have three simple questions. How old you were when you started this company?
Oh, okay, I can tell you my history. Okay, I'm 50 now, so Jamal will know. Well, I guess I joined that company in 1989, so that was 20 years. More backwards from here. So.
Okay, because the next question would be, did you have a clear strategy when you started the business? Because right now it's simple, you have, it's here,
Yeah,
presentation. But my concern, I'm in the same age, right? I'm sitting, I have no clue about strategy, nothing, but I have lots of power and desire to do the business, but tell me how it is.
Yeah, I mean, we were probably in very similar situation to yourself, that want to have desire, energy, I was employed at Northern Telecom back then, I didn't want to be employed, want to have business of our own. And Tom Peters is a guy who wrote In Search of Excellence. He wrote some of that fact that stuck me over the years, that if you do a lot of stuff, something will stick. But if you don't do anything, nothing will stick. So sometimes you just got to go out and create and do stuff, and hopefully something sticks somewhere that you can work with. We started doing distribution. We were working in a lot of different fields, and one area of cardiac electrophysiology kind of stuck to us. We grew into that. Then products we developed fit into that line of thought. So when we first when we got started, we didn't clearly have an idea except we had no money and we want to have business, so we kind of got this going, and we had tried a bunch of other business ideas prior to this kind of working for us, and probably the 30th idea that worked. Then we did have strategy once we went up and down 2-3 times to say that's not a life we want to live, and we want to have our own set of products. Then we thought strategically kind of clearly through to say, how do we take our resources and our skill set and go to a new level? And that was clearly thought through at that time then along the way.
Did you use any mentors or somebody?
Yeah, it's over the years we've been fortunate that we have had many people that have guided us, not necessarily on an official basis, but many people that we go speak to. Even today we go speak to other people that guide us and help us think things through. So we've been fortunate that we have had many from physicians that have helped us in terms of medical knowledge, to business people, to accountants, to lawyers. Many people have helped us, and that's kind of part of our driving. When Lloyd called us to say, can we do this? I said, we'd love to do it because it's part of, many people have helped us, and we should do what we can now.
Thanks.
But I should say, back then, we didn't have any organization like TIE to help us, so we should really be thankful to Lloyd and Suresh and others who are putting an enormous amount of effort to pull this together. I wish I had access to this level of knowledge and skill set. That would certainly have accelerated that. Please help us minimize the mistakes we made. So it's a great organization. It's a great kind of amount of time to putting in there to say, well, yeah, is it good? Yeah, I think the bad part is you may not get as many opportunities coming your way as otherwise. Right. So partnership opportunities. Now we're a bit better known, so we don't have that problem. But we did at one time. A number of people that come to you may not be there. You don't necessarily have the kind of brand and public sense to attract staff. the hospitals may have known as physicians in our area that we work in, but if you're trying to attract engineers or other knowledge workers, that becomes a little bit of an issue. The good part is that you can go about your business and no one bothers you. Okay, so you have low profile, you kind of go about doing your business, that kind of keeps it that way. So it's kind of been, good and bad. I'd say good overall. We've been happy with the way it is, and publicity's not always that good. Could be, but we didn't really think about that. It wasn't a big element of that part.
I'm curious, amongst all of the speakers, there was no mention of, quote, risk analysis. And you brought it up specifically about being flexible and having to deal with changing situations. For instance, the 4 times that somebody decided to withdraw the product you were distributing and do it themselves. Those were obviously risks, points of failure, if you wish. Did you employ anything like that in trying to anticipate what was probably going to happen?
Yeah, well, if you look at, the best example is one I was giving is that because that risk of that happening is inherent in our business is what led us to say we need to be our own manufacturers and our own set of products. So that was by far the biggest aspect of mitigating that risk, because we realized that this is the nature of the business. Doesn't matter how good we are, this will happen. In fact, better we are, higher chances of this happening, because we'll be selling more and they go direct more often than we'd like. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. So that was the kind of biggest risk mitigation. So they want to be our own manufacturers. And then if you want to be our own manufacturers, how can we get better at it and go deeper into that aspect and not
Just a small comment on that and a question for you, Kris. Roger Martin and Dina Robbinsville developed very interesting thinking on risk. It was in the context of Canadian companies going international or not. And one of the biggest flaws, and we all do it, is we look at an option A or an option B and say, well, these are the risks of doing this and doing this. And we compare that to the status quo and we say, well, that's risk 0. It's actually not risk 0, right? The status quo has an inherent risk also, which all of us ignore most of the time. So that's my take on it. Question for you goes to the first question. I know you do this, so I don't know if you've ever quantified. On average, how much of your time, not in a day or a week or a month, but how much of your time do you spend on operations versus growth versus strategically thinking? How would you split that up? But you do, you do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, you get a little bit more on the operations than you would like, and you try to grow the teams that could manage that on a more regular basis. We're kind of fortunate that as we grew a good set of managers who can manage first line of business, and manufacturing, quality, and IP, and we let them manage that, and then we deal with them on a weekly or monthly basis to go with that. So you want to, I would say at least 1 or 2 days a week on thinking about the future, as in what products we should have, what we should look like. And part of this involves traveling to customers or going to conferences, which is not running day-to-day business. And I would say maybe 2 days a week running your business, and 1 day firefighting or dealing with new initiatives or things that may have come up along the way. But yeah, I would say between everything it takes to think about the future, and even new skill sets that you're going to need, or acquiring those skill sets, like learning more regulatory. We're hands-on managers, by the way, we're hands-on people, so I have a good first-hand knowledge of everything that anybody's doing. So that takes skill set just to keep up with IP law or changes in FTA law, for instance, or changing in accounting or tax rules. Taxes can kill you if you don't manage that properly. So learning about tax rules, so keeping up with that as much as you can. I would say about 2 days a week.
We're in the shower.
I don't know, perhaps I missed a little bit from the talk. How much the IP that you obtain, so how much do they come from university settings, from, I don't know, startup companies, and is any plan for you to have your own, both just to create them and to like technical or clinical
so first of all our intellectual property or products have come from internal. So, yeah, so we haven't licensed except for the Prolix acquisition, brought any technology from outside. It's been internally generated, and we file our own patent. We have external patent agents, but we have patent agents in-house to file our own IP. And so all the kind of the ideas from a concept-wise have been developed internally, and our kind of the moniker that we use for our company, which I didn't put up here, is we like to think ourselves to go from concept to standard of care. So in our language, that means that we can think of a product, think of a unmet medical need, develop a product, manufacture it, get it approved, sell it, and becomes a regular standard of care for that disease set. Then obviously collect money to cycle this again. So we've done that 2-3 times in several medical areas where some more technologies have become standard of care on a worldwide basis. So we like to have the ability to think of a concept, if you will, and make it prevalent that's used on a worldwide basis, and that's what we like to grow.
But when you file for the IP protection, you file, you mentioned about China, right? So do you file for 100 and I don't know how many countries?
No, the patent is a very, very expensive landscape, so you need to think very strategically again on what geographies.
It doesn't cover.
No, it doesn't. So you need to think about what markets you want to cover. So, and how much it will cost, and what products are applicable in what geographies. So geographies we like to cover is U.S. U.S. still is roughly 40 to 50% of the world market for medical devices. Europe, because you can get coverage in the UK and not necessarily get coverage in right-of-way fees in other countries because translation costs are very expensive. And after that, we do Australia or China, or Japan. But only for very, very few products will go to Japan because the cost is so high. You gotta keep in mind, each patent that you file may cost upwards of $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 to obtain, plus another $20,000, $30,000 to keep it maintained, and that's just in one geography. So you need to think very carefully as in what is the product, what is it trying to protect, and what geographies. Because you can't, unless your IBM or RIM can't afford to have protection in every single country for every single IP patent that you have.
But you face mostly, you mentioned that you Baylis, I don't know
Yeah.
for what extent, but it's somehow regarded as a high-end.
That's how we like to position it, yeah. So in our kind of narrow medical device fields that we work in, then it would be at least understood as innovative technology. Yes, sir.
Could you tell us how important that patent to your revenue? How important?
Well, first of all, the patent, the
Related
fundamentals of patent is that it prevents from someone else from copying you.
Yeah.
So in itself doesn't generate any revenue. Okay? But without patent is what allows us to, like for instance, this needle that you see may cost us 50 cents to make, but we can sell it for $10. So the $9.50 that we get is really IP protection. It's really the patent that's allowing us, along with clinical, how to use it, or the clinical trial data that we have. So the value to go take a piece of metal to what we can sell it at is really the IP protection. IP protection is absolutely critical in our industry. So we invest enormous amount of resources towards that.
So you need about 95% of your revenue because of comes from IP, patent protection. Is that what you mean? Would someone else copy us overnight? There is technology that's very hard to copy. So there is a technology there. There's IP. There's also the clinical trials, which add value. There's also name brand, which adds value to say it's all sales coming strictly from IP protection. I wouldn't necessarily say that, but there's a big element of that. Because if you're successful, which we get, then people will copy us. So in the beginning, no one's interested in copying you, but as you become successful, people will want to copy you. So that's where the patent protection will help you. So I would say is, in our business, next to pharmaceutical, medical devices is most litigious patent business. So if we don't protect ourselves, someone can copy us, and B, if we happen to come close to someone else's patent, we have no defense.
So you mean with patent protection, and you can sell the product
for $10 with only 5 cents of the cost.
You hope. You have to do a bunch of other things. Patent itself won't allow you that. You have to do a bunch of other things. The product is supposed to work. It's supposed to add value to someone's life to sell, pay for that. They have to know how to use that. They must believe the data that you have, that it does work. And you must be able to teach them how to use it. So a bunch of other things have to go in the middle. But patent is one part of that people can't copy use. It's not the only thing.
Yeah, I
So,
know.
yeah.
Could you give us a percentage that patent's importance to your revenues? Could you give us an estimate?
I don't know if I can put a number on it. You could say it's 100% or it's 10% of that, but it's I mean, the way you could think about it is, let's say you start off with a product and you're only selling one, and no one is going to bother to copy you, so you don't need protection. But if you start selling a million, then someone's going to say, well, maybe I can make it for cheaper and sell into that. So that's when it becomes a problem. So it's not a problem until you're successful, then you want to block somebody. So that's where the value comes in. Now also, in our business and a lot of other businesses, if you want to deal with big companies or have any, then you need to have protection. Because another part is that if you don't protect it, maybe someone else will get a patent on it, then you can't practice your own product. So it has to be thought through and requires a lot of thinking because of the cost of getting that certificate.
Kris, how'd you come up with the name Baylis?
Actually, it's the company was started by my partner Frank's mother, Baylis. So she started that. She's a nurse. We started the business in '86. And Frank and myself joined in '89. So that's how I say the last name.
You have one last
No.
question? Okay.
Yeah, I'll answer this lady's question.
How many patents you have filed?
How many do you have filed? Patents, okay. Okay, so there is, you really need to think in terms of geographies, because you can have same application in US, Canada, US. So if you just think of US, so we have something like 35 granted patents and maybe another 40 applications, 50 applications along the way. So 35 are granted and maybe another 30, 40 that are in different stages of being prosecuted. So we do a lot of patent work. We in fact have 3 patent agents in-house to do nothing but to develop patents. Is a very critical aspect of our value proposition.
So if you will be continuing with those patents for the coming 20 years, because I believe every year you have to pay for it.
Yeah, it depends each country to each country. In the US, I think you pay the first 3 years, then 3 years, I think you get it for life. In certain countries, you need to pay each year. I think Japan, you need to pay every year. So it's kind of each aspect, and that's something that has to be thought through. Lady was asking which country do you apply in, that you need to think through is if I apply to Japan, how much is going to cost me? Then if the product is not successful, or technology is not developed, you can always abandon it at that time later on. But fees do, first of all, you have to get it prosecuted, and you get the patent. Then you have to sustain that. So it's a non-trivial cost. You have to think through as in which technologies and what geographies to protect.
Thank you so much, Kris.